know where Valentine's Day cards come from? The origins are a little less wholesome than most would have you to believe. The original Valentine's exchange were children. If a couple was tired of a misbehaving son or daughter, they would exchange them with another family's son or daughter. Seen in this photo is the homecoming of one such Valentine. Note the traditional Valentine's Day garb worn by the parents. On the night of February 14th, the parents and the children would leave their homes and walk around the neighborhood until they found another couple wearing the accepted two-horned mask. The parents would switch children and inspect them. If both parties were happy, they would exchange Valentines and head home with a new child. If one or both parties were unsatisfied, they would hold out a card with a heart on it and exchange those instead. This is where Valentine's Day cards originated. About a year ago, I revived a Facebook message the day before Valentine's Day, reading, "Are we still on for tomorrow?" It was from some guy I went to middle school with, and I haven't seen in 3 years. A little confused, I asked him back, "What are you talking about?" He proceeded to tell me about the plans we had made to hook up if we were both single. The problem with this is that it never happened. Initially, I was more outraged than worried. I continued to ask questions as to why this boy I haven't seen in years thought I would hook up with him. He told me that he had been chatting with me on Twitter and had been flirting with each other. This is when I started to get freaked out. Someone was pretending to be me online. I asked for the Twitter handle, and the user had been recently deleted. I asked him if anything else creepy was going on, and then he sent me Photoshop pictures of my face on someone else's body. I took this to the police, and they basically brushed me off, asking if I had a rival girl at school or flirted with someone's boyfriend. Basically just asking if I was a petty high school girl. What's worrying me now is Valentine's Day is coming up fast, and I haven't spoken to the other person since. I'm a 19-year-old female. When I was 8, right around Valentine's Day, I received one of those small manila envelopes in the mail. It had no return address, but it was sent from another state that I didn't know anyone from. When I opened it, it was simply a folded sheet of computer paper with a picture of Linus, you know, from Charlie Brown, holding a heart in his blanket. It appeared to be drawn and colored by hand. On the inside was a short Valentine's Day message with a small personal detail about my life that only someone close to me would have known. Naturally, I thought it was probably my grandparents or my parents trying to do something nice for me. Every year, I received one of those cards around Valentine's Day. Every year, it had a picture of Linus, including a detail of my life, was typed in the same font, and was from a different state. For example, the V-Day after I adopted my dog, Bailey, the card said, "Would Bailey be jealous if you were my Valentine?" I kept most of these, and managed to find a few as I rummaged through old worthless junk. When I got older, I finally mentioned it to my grandparents, fully expecting it to be them, but they swore that they weren't sending them. I believed it, because I expressed my concerns by this point, and they aren't the type to want to scare me. Neither are my parents. The only other family I have in the U.S. are my dad's parents, who don't speak English well, and have never owned a computer. They immigrated here and wouldn't know people in so many states. Aside from my parents and my brother, who find it strange as well, I have no other family. I still get the cards every year, always the same, except for one Valentine's Day a few years ago. I received a stuffed teddy bear and a big chocolate heart along with a card. Needless to say, I didn't eat the chocolate, and I searched that bear, half convinced there could be a hidden camera. After that year, I started just receiving the cards again. In any case, as a child, it was sort of exciting and mysterious, like a secret admirer. Now it's just unnerving. I have racked my brain for years trying to figure out who it could be, and I've come up empty-handed. It still makes me uneasy, but if this person wanted to hurt me, I think they would have done it by now. I've never felt outwardly threatened by them, so I don't think there's much I can do about it. The main thing I want to know is why, what is the point, and who? I may never find out. At the very end of 2014, I became extremely invested in true crime and spent countless nights researching and reading about all different kinds of crimes, but mainly the Columbine school shooting of 1999. I had dabbled in the Tumblr true crime scene in the previous year for the Zakor Sanov case in 2013, so I ended up returning to it at the same time. The scene was subdivided into many cliques, but there was one that was extremely prevalent and consisted of the fandoms of cool kids. Only in real life they weren't cool at all. They sat at home planning mall shootings, but I will get to that later. Many of the people in that group came across as very shallow, moody, and distant, which one can only expect of people that love murderers. But there was something else. They all lacked compassion and heart, except one boy, who we shall call Billy. He was nice and compassionate, but he hid it under a cold and shallow facade, which could only slowly be uncovered when you began to get closer to him, which me and many other of my friends eventually did to our pleasure. This boy is one of the most beautiful things I had ever known. He was straight out of some indie come-of-age film where the love interest is a bad boy from the wrong side of the tracks. He was just mesmerizing, no matter how messed up he was. He was just so hard not to love, and I don't think there was one person in the Tumblr true crime scene that didn't love him. In February 2015, he began posting a lot of things on Tumblr about the date of Valentine's Day that year, even going as far as to create a playlist on 8 tracks about what was happening on that date, which consisted of basically anything that sounded like trash cans being thrown against a brick wall while someone screamed over it. My friends and I began to speculate. Of course, with the state of his blog, one can only assume what could come on that very date, and many people silently caught on and reported it to the authorities. Then the day before Valentine's Day, authorities showed up at his house and had a showdown with him before he eventually shot himself at the scene. It was revealed that he, along with a couple of other people from the Tumblr true crime scene, had been planning a mall shooting on Valentine's Day and could have killed literally hundreds of people. The entire Tumblr scene was in shock at what had happened, and I eventually grew out of that dark period of my life, of being caught up in the darkness, and now mine and many of the other friends I made in this Tumblr scenes lives are back on track. Unfortunately, Billy never had the opportunity to fix himself, but fortunately, many other people's lives were saved for the loss of one, which is a gain at the end of the day. Darkness and sadness, let's not meet again. On behalf of myself and many of the other friends I met along the way, may no one else ever do what Billy intended to do.
Why